can call it a juncture or a watershed in Nigeria's wobbly journey to good governance. We welcome this morning our second part on this Democracy Day special. My name is Mwabo Zenjoko. Now, in the morning when we began the day, we did a self-examination. The media, that's our constituency. And we raised the question, did the media miss an opportunity in reporting June 12? This time, we are going to pose a fundamental question. Has June 12 redeemed itself? Has June 12 redeemed itself? Now, unlike our segment in the morning, this is a town hall. People will be very free to make their opinion, canvass their positions, express their understanding of all the issues we are going to raise. The only thing we won't accept, though, is language that is divisive, rhetoric that is inciting. But you can make your point as strongly as you want to do, but please, name calling and all that, we will immediately disown you if you start calling names and say somebody is stupid, somebody is a thief, somebody is irresponsible. But please, welcome to our town hall. Well, our friends and the invitees are coming in trickles. Our method this morning that will not introduce them. They'll introduce themselves. Now, let me start from where the majority is. Let me start from my right. Please, can we get to know you?
Okay. I think good afternoon, good morning, audience. I mean, people watching us from wherever. My name is Clement Chukwuemeka, the immediate past second vice president of Nigerian Bar Association.
Clement, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
I do not know whether to bow to his lordship. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Sam Kagbo. I'm a lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria. I have my practice here in Abuja. And thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Let me go to my left. When he came in, I said to him that today we will pummel them, he and his friends. Let's get to meet you.
My name is Chinedu Obi, the national chairman of the National Rescue Movement, a political party in Nigeria. I also double as the Director General of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, which is the body of all registered political parties in Nigeria. It's my pleasure being here once again. Thank you, Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Let me start. Oh, there are two lawyers on my right. In other words, I'm covered by law. Even if anybody wants to send me to jail without bail, there are people here to sort things out. Clement. What, to your understanding, did we fight for when we were at the peak of the June 12 struggle? What were Nigerians agitating for?
Purely good governance. Good governance. And we cannot talk about June 12 without at least paying tribute to those that really contributed to that particular struggle. And the peak of the person, the exact person who really made this happen was our own MKO Abiola. Blessed memory. We sincerely appreciate what he sacrificed and what he stood for, and which is lacking in the present day democracy. So, in all, what we are all asking for is good governance. Any bringing quality dividends of democracy to people of this country. And people definitely have to be glad everything is working as it should be and promises are kept. And most especially trust, because that is what is keenly lacking currently, because MKO Abiola, who stood for June 12 and vouched for it, actually Nigerians came out purely without knowing or believing in him, trusting him. And as at that time, we never knew what that is called tribal, religious, and all that. Everybody came out together and voted Muslim.
Okay, my senior advocate, help me a little bit. Was the June 12th struggle really all about good government?
Well, it was anticipated that it would produce good governance, but let's start from the beginning. It was about the vote, the people's mandate, and the people's right to form their government, the people's right to choose their leader, the people's right to enjoy the freedoms that the Constitution gave to them. They voted for a candidate. The candidate won the election, but the military said they didn't like his face and wanted to, and refused to declare him the winner, even though the result was known. I refused to let him have his tenure that the people gave to him through the electoral box. So it's about the protection of that. And it was also about what? Winning the country from the military and domiciling it back to the people who own the country. So June 12th symbolizes the aspirations of every living being to be governed by a government that what he chooses by himself through the vote. And like he said, people died for that. And MKO in particular, the winner, died for it. And the expectation or the underlying philosophy and belief in the vote is that if the people have their government, they desire, they choose and give a mandate and tenure to, and that government is accountable to it, then we would have good governance. Mind you, if a government is not accountable to you, he could act and live in spite of you, because what? There is no connection. There is no fallback to you, because what? You are not the last say. If he comes to you, he comes to you as what? A philanthropist. And that is why they say they have benevolent leaders. But to my own understanding, the first and foremost, we have government because what? We want to manage ourselves in a manner that we can predict the outcome of the management. So much so that if we try this system, it doesn't work, because we are all part of it, we effect it seamlessly. If we vote you into office and give you a mandate, expecting that you would deliver your promises, electoral promises, and you fail in that, at the next election, what? We'll vote you out. And in that process of trial and error, we may strike gold. Because in any case, the gold digger got the gold because what? Somebody had dug the path up to that point where what? The shovel was put. So it has to be a continuous process of the people's engineering, rejigging, reinforcing, and strengthening the process that you call democracy. So yes, democracy was fought for. Has it delivered? To some extent, yes. Well, has it delivered optimally? No. Why is that so? First and foremost, the human nature. Those that have had the benefit to benefit personally from that effort have betrayed the people. Some of them deliberately out of what? Greed, avarice. Some out of incompetence, or a combination of all of this. But we also have had to what? Play our part in the inability of the democratic plane to fly optimally. Why am I saying so? We've been indulging We indulged, and we also partake in dividing the nation in the sense that we are ambivalent, morally ambivalent in how we respond to public abuses and public breaches. Hey, if the leader is from my own section, irrespective of his incompetence, irrespective of his erosion of the democratic system, we support him. And he does nothing wrong. Because what? He's from us. Not just out of tribe, not just out of elite company, but also from within the parties. And it's not just about Nigeria. Today, to the Republicans, Trump can do no wrong. It's a human nature. And what am I saying here? The civic culture, what I mean is the people's sensitivity to public inadequacies or public infraction defines democracy and gives value to democracy. Because the more tolerance and indulgence you give to these inanities, the less returns you have. And if today we do not have the quality of leadership that we deserve, it is because what? We had also not given the quality of attention and participation that we ought to give into the system.
The senior advocate, I'll come back to you very much. Now, the political leadership, our friends who are in the business of politics, struggling to govern us. You've listened to the two reasons why we struggled for the actualization of June 12. As I've said, it cost lives, caused dislocation, created animosity among groups and individuals for us to arrive at the democratic order that we have now. Was it just a matter of choice? Because the senior advocate said, our right to choose, determine who governs us, was one of the propelling factors why Nigerians rebelled against autocracy and the filing of their own choice. Was there more?
Thank you very much. Once again, thank you for inviting me. I want to adopt the position of the lawyers in the preamble they've made, setting the tone for this conversation. And to add that June 12 also clearly exposed Nigerians' resilience and the will of the people to decide what they want and even fight for it. What is very instructive in the June 12 experience is that was a military government, yet the people insisted. And if you remember, forced that government. And I am happy that it's the same country, Nigeria, it's the same country all of us are facing today. It's the same people. Whatever that would have changed could also be in the description of the SAN, that people, for some reason, for as long as your own is involved in anything, there's nothing wrong with it. However, I want to say that we made tremendous progress from June 12. That resilience of Nigerians are still there. Remember, we had a point in Nigeria where we had a case of someone trying to exceed his tenure of office in Nigeria. Nigerians also came against it, and it didn't happen. We have successive governments, elections. You may have your perception about them, but have we transited from one transition to the other? We have severally. We've had political parties move from PDP in 1999 to APC in 2015. We've had change of government. So many things have happened. And I think that our politics is actually growing. Yes, are we where we're supposed to be? No. But we have actually moved from a point to a point where we can now begin to think about how do we... In fact, it's actually the fact that we have not gotten to where we expect to be, that you find the level of agitations you have around the country. So we are very optimistic. This is a period I think Nigerians will still need to believe that we can get our country right. Believe in the sense that the same country that we have had cases in the past where we showed resilience, where we showed commitment, where we emphasized the issue of religion. We talked about, for the first time, Nigerians didn't have any problem with a Muslim ticket. Nigerians came out through a process which today said is the most credible election we've had, which means people are resilient, we can have good processes, we can relate to many years after to say we did well. The option A4 up to today, Nigerians still believe is a process that worked. It was created by Nigerians, done in Nigeria. So I still believe that yes, with continuous reforms, Nigeria will get to that place we want to get to as a country.
Now, Clement, June 12 really was not a cause, it was a consequence. It was a consequence of two things. One, either real or pretended willingness of the military to conduct election. Two, the process that every Nigerian saw did not deny them of their choice. Free, open, very transparent, credible. The outcome is the name we call June 12. Let us examine that process. The electoral process that produced June 12. I don't want us to begin to yet assess the processes of today. How do you examine that process? Now the military, it was under the military. We had the option of secret ballot, but the election managers by the law were free to design what we give Nigerians what they wanted. Please examine that process, that electoral process, and examine it against what is obtaining or what has been obtaining. Are we that transparent? Is the system allowing the election managers to do what they ought to do to produce credible outcome?
Well, thank you for that question. I think, first of all, let me say that the military underestimated the actual winner of that particular election, Nkeigo Abiola. And if you look at from that particular option A4, which was introduced by the then Humphrey, I think Humphrey was
Professor
Humphrey Mosu. You look at the transparency, how people will come up and queue, and it is always counted as it is, as you are seeing it live. The process, a lot of it might, if you just oppose it with what we have currently, you look at the system that people, because of the greed and the type of politics that is being played, people tend to collect money to vote. But as I've done, you come out with your conscience. Your mother or your father might be in the other line while you are in the other line. This is your
choice.
Your choice. And you count it, people will take record of that particular, the result instantly. In fact, within 5 minutes of every counting, the whole country, people will be able to know through collection, and everybody will take over. And but currently, you cannot even examine or try to understand the votes that you even voted within the environment after counting. Then different results will start trickling in. So what we need to, with the option A4 that was introduced, I still believe remain one of the best, and that is why that particular election has been adjudged as the best, fairest, and the most credible election ever had. Even up to this time that we definitely announced results. We have just announced results, and people will just go, okay, let us wait for another 4 years. But to my own personal belief and thinking, I feel that any type of process that will give confidence and give trust to the people, and return the vote to the people's choice will continue to be the best. And that is why you see the option A4 continue to be the best until this one.
Sam, let me just look for trouble. Was option A4 an illegal infraction?
No, it wasn't, because the law gives the electoral manager the latitude to use whatever electoral process that he thought best for the conduct of the election. As at that time, it was actually the first election that Nigeria would have after a long spell of the military. It was enhanced by some of these reasons. One, the people were fed up with the military and did not want to give the military any excuse. So both in terms of comportment and belief in the electoral manager, it was near absolute. And the electoral manager too had actually demonstrated the capacity to conduct free and fair elections. A lot of education was made because that education needed to have been done at that time, because election for some people at some age, it was first for them. Some of them, they were having first generation elections. And you also see as a factor the comportment of the candidate. MK Abdullah was a larger than life personality who had actually crisscrossed the entire spectrum of Nigeria and had shown goodwill, and so therefore he could do no wrong as at that time. And you also have on the flip side, Tofa was also a gentleman to the core. So both parties that's the candidates themselves. They did not go to town with inflammatory rhetorics. They did not go to town with combustive narrative, or did not go to town to give the impression that the election is a do or die affair. They went there as men of the pulpit, actually capturing the minds and hearts of Nigerians. So it was done in the traditional, or what I've said, the textbook prescription of how elections should be done. So they played their part comfortably. Then there is also the part of the two-party system. The two-party system were developed principally in anticipation of this.
Yeah.
So you only had two political parties. So it's easy for you to line up 500 people and say, hey, go left or go right. But today, by the last election, you had over 70 political parties. 70 political parties. It therefore becomes unthinkable for you to have option A4 in that sort of chaotic scenario. So, what am I saying? The environment, as at that time, enhanced option A4. Everybody played their part. The electoral manager played its part. Nobody could suspect him of anything. And in any case, the military that appointed him did not give the impression that they wanted a certain outcome, and they may not have communicated that to him, because if they had, it may have been different. But they gave him the free hand. So that environment enhances it. To say you can transpose or transmute that particular system to today's electoral environment, I do not think so. Because it may not work. But what am I saying here? Election will only work when the players themselves play their part, the political parties play this part. I've always said this, the most pampered association in the world that I ever thought of is the political parties here. They give them a free will. It is only in Nigeria that they even put it in the constitution to say we're going to give you the what? The authority to form government and constitute the personnel of government without you giving anything in return. Not so much. To the extent that at some point they were even given some money.
Yeah.
And that's why you have this number of political parties. So much so that even if you don't, in some other places, yes, like the US that we copied from, the political parties have earned their spots, because in any case, every political norm you are talking about is generated by political parties, and yet the Constitution did not mention them or say this is what it said. And that's why it's so easy for you to move from Democrats to say, oh, these Democrats are too ceremonious, they are too clever. If I use them, I may not get the presidency, but if I go there and I use what? Fox, and whatever I say they believe, I'm going to win, and he won. You understand? So that's what it is. And let me tell you something, no system would work without that symbiotic belief. The system has to believe the people, and the people have to believe the system. That is the way it's going to work. Once that is that match of the mind, what we call in law a meeting of the mind, it may not work. What am I saying here? I was part of the people who witnessed the last election in the US. I went through the auspices of IFES. And we were walking into a mall, and I saw polling booths for early voters. They were unmanned, but yet the hole was there where you come and put your votes. In the evening, the electoral manager will come and pick them and go, and they count. So I called one of the officers of one of these parties. I said, "Okay, come and see what is happening here. This votes are
election is going on."
He said they are going to count. He says, "Sam, you are not serious. Go try it in Nigeria now." You understand? So that gap is there. That mental gap is there. We do not have, I don't know if I'll be fair to use the word, that cultural DNA that will allow for that. We're too suspicious. We do not trust the manager does not trust us, and therefore take a look at the hurdles they put against you for you to vote. Look at the electoral law and the electoral process. What you need to do for you to be able to exercise your fundamental right to vote and constitute your government. In the same years you're saying, you can walk 5 minutes into a place, you are ready to vote, not even having registered. You walk where the vote is, say, here is my ID card, I am an adult eligible to vote, and I should vote here. They say, are you registered? I say, no. Can we register you? They register you there and then take a list. You vote, 5 minutes you are out. Why is that so? The system trusts themselves and they make it easier, because what? The more the number, the more the legitimacy given to what? The winner of the election. But look at the number of people who actually participate in the elections here. Out of over 200 million people, how many actually voted in totality? Is it up to 50 million? What about the rest? Voter apathy. Some is not so much also voter apathy, but they would not really want to sacrifice time to go through that hurdle. Which is actually the job of the political parties, to actually make
galvanize
the people and what? Let me use your word, galvanize, and actually lure them to the line, so that what? We have more numbers, because the more the numbers, the more you neutralize manipulations. That is the aspect. The more the turnout, the more, like I said, you neutralize early predetermined outcomes, the measurements that would have been done back end before the elections. When you have the numbers of people coming overnight,
the number of small manipulation.
So we have a lot to do.
Now, sir, there are two key issues you've raised which are of great interest to this conversation, and that is the willingness to allow the electoral process, the electoral umpire, to do what he ought to do. And because in June 12, the umpire was allowed, he sat back to look at the environment and he designed a process that will give that election the credibility that's warranting this conversation this morning. How much is the electoral umpire, either by the laws that have been made or by the attitude of those, either both the political parties and the governance system, how much of that latitude is available to the electoral umpire today? Just by the way, NRM, I'm coming to you. While we are still talking, senior advocate, somebody, he came by wrote a book. He said, because I am involved.
Yeah.
Somebody who is involved came in to this conversation. Just as we have been doing, we are not going to introduce him. Can you please let us meet you? You are welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. My name is Paul Ibe. I'm the media advisor to former Vice President Edward Walker. And even more importantly, I'm also a journalist on sabbatical.
Thank you very much. We'll soon return you to the journalism classroom since you're on sabbatical. Now, NRM, I'm addressing you by that is because let our viewers understand that, as I just said a while ago, you are involved. And the question we have raised is, how much of free hand, either by law or by attitude, is given to Nigeria's electoral umpire? Because according to the senior advocate, it was that environment that allowed the electoral umpires of 1993 to think freely, examine the environment, and design a method that produced this conversation we're holding this morning. How much freedom, how much trust is being given to Nigeria's electoral umpire?
Whereas it may look like the military in 1999 allowed Professor Humphrey Mosu the freedom to decide, the outcome did not say that. Because if the end of any process is better than anything, if the election had succeeded, we could say, give the credit to the military, they allowed the process. I don't think that they were interested in the process. It could be an accident of fortune.
Thank you. Maybe it was a mistake.
Absolutely.
You know, every mobster can elude the police for 1,000 years until he makes a mistake.
Very well. Now, having said that, I also believe that the military had an outcome in mind at that time. And of course, if you remember in 1999, when they also wanted to hand over to the PDP, you discover that they created structures that predetermined the outcome. We had what they called manual accreditation process that allows you to throw up the kind of numbers you wanted to throw up if you want to rig election. Now, to tell you that we've actually moved away from that, if you remember in the period under Jega attempted what he called a card reader, a process that was going to determine actually that the real persons were coming to vote. But of course, he missed it when he provided what they call the incident form. That now took us back to the issue of manual accreditation. But in fairness to Mahmoud upped the game with what he called divas. If you checked the outcomes of elections that happened within the period Beavers was used,
yes,
those numbers that you hear 5,000 votes in a place where you have just 2 people registered no longer exist. So it means that continually our electoral process is actually evolving. And I don't think Nigerians will leave the process in the hands of politicians, in the hands of electoral managers alone. All our eyes should be on it. Seek continuous electoral reform. If you look at what we didn't do right in the last election, we find a way of making sure that we block those loopholes so that we have, because all everybody is asking for is a system that will be transparent. Today, the greatest challenge is the trust deficit that we have between Nigerians, the government, and even the electoral managers. Nigerians don't believe that the system works because sometimes the outcome does not reflect their expectation. But as a player, I insist and believe that our elections are gradually evolving and counting. The apathy you talked about is because people believe that if we come in and vote, we will not get the outcome of the votes. People believe that votes don't count. The last time I was here, I argued that votes count. If they don't count, you won't hear that people buy votes. Why would politicians budget so much to buy votes?
Okay, we can say that politicians don't allow the votes to count.
If you say that, that might look more like it, because all this manipulation you find here.
Yeah, because votes have weight.
Option A4. In today's Nigeria, would you expect that Nigerians will queue for 1 hour and you don't have people coming to shoot and scatter everybody? That won't happen in today's Nigeria. So I think that what we need to continually do is keep putting our eyes on the ball to ensure that our processes, our reforms are consistent. I think today what Nigeria requires is totally electronic system that allows us to sit here and vote. And if you notice, giving answer to the issue you raised, we are now doing away with PVC, because if our accreditation process is biometrics, you don't need, all you just need to show is that you have registered before. Maybe the addition will be to give you opportunity to register at any time. That's not happening now. But I can tell you, with us doing away with what you call the voter's card, since we're going biometrics, I think it will improve the turnout. Because before, you find that you go to a place, deliberately, persons would not have access to PVC, which for me was a style of reading for those who do it. And sometimes I don't believe that an institution, a responsible institution, will sit down to undermine their own processes. So it could be the politicians who take advantage of some of the loopholes they find.
You are a politician.
Well, but you know, I told you the last time I'm a politician with a difference.
Okay, we'll come to that.
I like that.
Paul, let me say welcome again.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask you a question that we have not broached, because this is going to be a long haul. Certain forces created June 12. And in the course of national conversation at that time, there were allegations that those forces were not necessarily all wearing military uniform. In other words, there were certain interests who did not want that election to play out successfully, creating June 12. Today, we are celebrating June 12 as Nigeria's Democracy Day. You are involved. To your mind, have all those forces that created June 12 left off Nigeria's democratic process?
Well, thank you very much. It is ironical that the forces that you are alluding to are today's players.
They are well and alive.
They are still alive. Those that are helped to foster, to sustain military hegemony are still with us at the highest level. So-called Democrats. And they have learned one or two things from the military. They have learned oppression. They have learned dictatorship. What we are having is actually this is the second republic of military dictatorship. I mean, civilian rule does not translate, really to democracy. I mean, look at what are the pillars, of democracy. What is it that gives democracy, that a distinctive, flavor? And you look at it, is all of those pillars have been eroded. One, more importantly, what are the political parties? Okay, the freedom of association. And we are all gradually being railroaded into one basket of deplorables. Everybody, as if we are all cattle, and the media, the freedom of press is also another pillar. And they are using the cyber security, laws to ensure that freedom of speech is undermined. The other aspect is anti-corruption. It is important. But what we have now, we have a situation where the so-called anti-corruption agencies are now players in the political process. The ruling party is actually using those institutions, those organizations. They are using them to achieve, an outcome that would, satisfy, their aspirations. I said it not long ago, and they were listening. I said I'm a journalist on sabbatical. I had credible information of what was happening, and it's still happening. I'm aware of a top politician that has been written to by the EFCC. Now, people are being targeted on suspicion that they are candidates for the coalition. And you begin to ask yourself, June 12th, 36 years down the road, what is it that has, changed? I think we are, you talk about the process, this thing improving and all of that, and we are walking back.
In other words, the same forces are
they are still at work.
My senior advocate, I'll come to it presently. He has raised a very interesting thing, but I want to draw our attention to the narrative. If you go back to toward the end of Obasanjo's administration, the accusation of using the anti-corruption agencies to hound opponents of the government began to rear its head. Not just in murmurs, in some media channels. Except for Aradua, Jonathan was accused, or Jonathan's government was accused of inducing the anti-corruption agencies to look the other way while the PDP government looted the country empty, if not dry. During Buhari's time, in fact, he was accused openly of using the anti-corruption agencies to hound his opponents. Now, this administration has just been accused frontally by my friend Paul of using the same anti-corruption agencies to hound elements in the coalition. In other words, it's a continuum. Then if these forces that created June 12th are well, strong and alive, it doesn't mean that they have been operating since after June 12th and they have refused to die. Son, why don't you send all these forces that are holding us down, why not sending them to prison without bail?
It's not within my purview. I am an advocate. Let me say yes. Even with the military coups, there had always been civilian participants who egg them on, who take the so-called people's grievances to them. Some even do provide the moral support,
financial support.
And I've also known some traditional rulers that were dethroned because of what the tendency towards that. That is a fact, but what I may not know, he should know better, to say that those people are still part and parcel of this government. That is what, 26 years back? That's 26
yes,
26 years back.
Yes, from 1999.
Yeah.
30 something from June 12.
June 12, yes. 30 something. How old would they have been and how old are they now? I don't know. But let me come back to the opposition. Let me start with them because they are always the people who cry
The loudest.
And most of the time when you are empty, you are louder. And they sack their responsibility and they would want us to mischaracterize them and want us to patronize them, but I won't. I have written a lot about, I've always been a columnist, that's where we met, and an editorial board member of Daily Independent up to 2019. We started from diet up to that point. I've always been a writer. And I was also telling somebody who was telling about their own democratic struggle. I said, well, the democratic struggle or advocacy was in many forms those days, because some of us who were writers were also invited. Like I told them, I said, listen, when Ali Maslow came, I wanted to sell the idea, because I knew he was procured, to come and sell the idea of Daiki, pointing at what Egypt was benefiting from it. From that point, I wrote, I said no to Daiki, and I gave my reasons. And I sent the article to one paper, which was Guardian. The next morning I woke up, all the newspapers had it as a headline, no to Daiki. I did not know that marked me down. Then the next moment, we were also at the USIS, which was also being suspected as the collaborator with the CD. And my contribution was that, listen, let's do allow them distract us. The narrative here is simple. There was an election, there was a winner. What is in the issue is why are they delaying the declaration and swearing in of the winner? All other narratives don't matter. And I think the discussion and the agitation should be towards declare the winner and give him the return and let's move on. 3 days later, I was invited to 7 Awolowo Road. They had in my file all my articles, they adopt them, they put them there. And then I was very smallish, I walk in there, the leader look at me, says, that him? I say, I don't know him, And they look at me, they ask me whether I was a member of CD. I say, how can, why would I see this? No, from. They asked whether I was related to anybody. I say, oh no. The only person that I felt I had absolute respect for from within that community is Alawa Akabasharum. I said, because to me I thought it was genuine and all of that. So they went back for their meeting. They said, oh, gentlemen, go and face your hustle. From their own record, they say it's just an ordinary heckler and irritant. That's the solution. But coming back to the point here, the opposition owe the country a lot of respect. You have to respect them because it is your duty. Mind you, it's a contest for not just power, but it's for space and relevance. If somebody is poaching from you, it means that what? You do not have the glue to hold your members there, and whose fault it is. Whose business it is to let you prosper? There is no way in the world where another political party will not want to see you dead. That is their own, and that is also your business. That is why what you demarket it, you deleverage it, and you create counter perspective and narratives just because what? You know that the higher it goes, the lower you go. So it is your responsibility to stand as a buffer between the aggrandizing nature of what a party in power and the people. But where are you? You have what? A community of opportunists. Everybody wants to be president overnight, and you do not want to put your skin and limb on the line, but you want to come and would the people with the pity party? No, I'm not. But that is not to say I would want also to align myself with God. And I have made that point earlier. It is for us not to lose focus on the ball. It is a collective thing for us to know that, one, we are under a governance system that in itself is not democratic, which is the presidential system. For God's sake, you give the entire resources of a nation to one man, and you give him power, you enumerate power where he has what? Absolute authority over 68 items, now 67 items of the Constitution that cover every aspect of your life, even my own profession, even the management of disputes in courts, evidence, all of that, you give it to one man, one authority, one God. That person by himself, if he mismanage that, the weight of it would cross you. It is also us by ourselves will give absolute power to people to make laws. And when they mismanage that power, it would cross us and kill us. The same thing with what? You give people to say, you are the only person that has what? The final say on every dispute. And even when you err, they say what? It is in my right to err. Because what?
You can't appeal to God.
Not infallible. So you have three gods facing you, and each one of them, his misstep will kill you. Each one of them, his misstep would affect your fortune in every ramification. So what do? If you do not pool energies, you do not pool resources to make sure that all of these gods are contained within their enumerated powers, we would have what we are having. We have third world being what we are, undeveloped and regressing to the point that I have written very recently. I don't know if I said it that way. I said we may end up again to civil wars to resolve our dispute, because what? The political system is no longer what? A succor. You are no longer enhancing my economy, but a threat to my own economy. You are no longer enhancing my security, but a threat to my own security. You are no longer an independent and effective what? Managers of my disputes. What do you expect me to do? I need to leave. And that is why that same suffocation, that same frustration is what is driving people to the bush. Many of these banditry, terrorism, they are proxy wars by people who feel that what? They've been pushed out of the system. Especially in an environment where everybody has this entitlement syndrome to say, how? By my status, I should have this. So the job is there. Let's don't start trying to say, oh, you expect that what? APC will not want to. APC would re-enroll you if you do not say, hey.
Okay, before the coalition collapses, if you don't keep your eyes open, that's what it has told you. And APC has a right under the political arrangement of power contestations to crush you. It is for you to stand on your feet and stop whining.
Well, if you say the APC, but I think
there
is a moral distinction on the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I mean, as a custodian, I mean, he is the one who, is the chief operator in all of this. And we mustn't, like we are seeing, directly open, sweep them. There are certain things that the president cannot say. It's the same way, should not do. Yeah, if you talk about his political party that he's a member, but for him to do what he is doing from that position as the commander-in-chief.
Paul, we did not by our lawyers, if I'm wrong, please correct me. We did not give a mandate to Tinubu, we give a mandate to APC. His picture is not there when we are casting our ballot. It is APC that is there, that we know. Tinubu is only a representative of the party.
Didn't take an oath of office. Bola Ahmed Tinubu took an oath, and that's not this. I mean, it was the same thing, argument that was raised in the matter of his forfeiture of $460,000 US and allegations of drug trafficking.
Okay, let's
and they say it's the bank.
Yeah, but
owns the bank.
You see, the fact of the matter is that this is what the lawyers have argued. This is what the courts have said. We are going to stick for now on what the courts have said. I didn't say so. I'm not a lawyer. I didn't make the law.
They have told you about the three courts.
I am only. Well, incidentally, I don't have the powers to say let there be light. I would have changed all those things since they are gods. Now, Clement, there is something I don't want to run away from, and that is, if those forces are creating this kind of challenge and they are still well and operative, do you think, don't forget, what were those powers up to during June 12? It is to scuttle the process, to stop people's choice, to determine who governs us. There's an argument I don't want to bring up, and I brought it up now against you because there is argument within the media circle that in fact the PDP was not a political party, that the PDP was a special purpose vehicle by the military to hand over power. But I don't want to raise that conversation.
That is debatable. The reason why it's debatable is that, you see, the PDP as a political party was also a platform. Those are the people who fought, the military.
That is
G34 and
that is the narrative you are given. The fact of the matter
of G34 did not fight for this one. G34
how many members of
were beneficiaries
from the PDP government? You didn't remember what
excuse me, Paul. Let's go ahead. Gentlemen, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. I'm creating that confusion. Let me withdraw, but I don't want to distract Paul. Clement, the forces and what they wanted to achieve, it was to scuttle a democratic process, an electoral process and its outcome, and continue holding on to power. And from the very elaborate philosophical appraisal of it that our senior advocate has made, it means by anyhow they are operating it, they're still on. And by the clear submission by Paul, they said those forces are well, alive, and operational. What could be the end game if they are still here operating? Because willy-nilly, we are not in democratic order. Are they creating a quasi-democracy? And that will lead me to asking you the question, is democracy itself in Nigeria, is it well and alive?
I think, let me first of all adopt all that my learned sake have just said, and the democratic tenets, I feel, is still alive. The things that we are meant to benefit from democracy, definitely we are looking at it. And those players, let me just reiterate that the current president resisted the issues that led to his detention before he ran away. And that resilience and those determinations, I was thinking that someone of that nature coming to take prime position as the leadership, as the first citizen of this country, will not go to the media and be saying, as it depends them, it is with us. As he said yesterday during one of the commissioning of the bridges, quoting the Honorable Minister of FCT. The environment actually have given him a lot of latitude to come into the system and perfect some certain things as a true Democrat. Because I still believe that one of the best politicians Nigeria can vouch for currently remains the current president. Because he stood his ground and stayed in one particular environment until the power got to him. So the players are still within us. They just recycling. And that is why, in as much as I'm not praying for another military rule, but I still believe that sometime when there are some changes, you will see a brand new person is coming in to bring ideas. Because the ideas that we are seeing in Nigeria currently remains the ideas that have been consistently there. And all of them, both the two prominent political parties, the PDP and APC, everybody is continuously working for stomach infrastructure. They are looking for what they will benefit. They are not after how how the masses are faring. Because if we could have the leadership of the Senate trying to move a motion, can we move a motion for people, for them to breathe? For them to have a kind of the statement that the president let the people breathe? You will understand the kind of environment we are in. So, but I am still optimistic that this country is forging ahead. The opposition, the way they are trying to bring up some policies and trying to form alliance and all that, which is very, very encouraging. They should not be kind of intimidated, because those people in the other party will not be relaxed, waiting for them to have a tea party, just to enjoy themselves. There must be a way to get them down. And it is a matter of for them to come together and say, whatever you want to achieve can never be given to you just freely.
Thank you very much, Clement. I'm going to take a short break now. But before I take that short break, Paul, what Clement had just said to us now is that power is never given, and power is taken. And it's very difficult to make omelette without breaking eggs. Somehow, to cover 1,000 miles can wear the heels of your shoes. I think they're very wise gentlemen, and please, can you pay their bills when we leave here, because they're giving you very important advice.
I agree with them.
So please, will you pay your bills after here?
Don't forget, the only reservation is on Sabbath that I raised, and even in our little corners, families, as parents, there are things that we cannot say to one child, even if that child is the preferred one when the others are there. I mean, there are golden rules about engagement. The president needs to, what he did yesterday? It was disgraceful, very unbecoming of the office of the president. Yes, it did pain us, and he's rubbing it on our face.
No, he's telling you what the president told you yesterday.
No,
excuse me, please. What
the president
yesterday?
They pay us that we don't have food.
No, the president told us.
He's telling us.
Taking it out of context.
I'm speaking as
what the president said to you and those in opposition was that he's performing very well and the people are seeing it. Yeah. You can win to your heart's content. He is delivering. That's what he told you.
He's delivering.
That's what he told you. So it is with him that he's delivering. He will pay you because he is coming back, because people will ask him to come back.
Nigerians
please, we don't
have food to eat. They are not secured. It depended.
No, but the president was not sharing food yesterday. He wasn't sharing food
Not
yesterday.
only the politicians of the opposition that they pay.
He wasn't addressing the positions, he wasn't addressing Nigerians, he was addressing those in the position. Well, this is Democracy Special, June 12, celebrating it, a juncture in Nigeria's history. And in this opening feature with which we began this program, we said it is a juncture in a wobbly journey. When we return, we will ask the very critical question that caused this program to be designed this way. Has June 12 really redeemed itself? We take a short break. Please stay with us because more of our guests are coming in. We return presently. Well. Yeah, welcome back now. While we took that short break, one of our guests walked in. And he walked in such a way that I felt that, frankly speaking, there's a measure of purity in this morning's conversation. He came in flowing white robe. And as is our style, the senior advocate is really admiring that whiteness. Let us meet you the way others. We're not introducing people. You just introduce yourself. Can we please meet you?
Okay. I'm Comrade James Ezema, the Deputy National Police Secretary of the Conference of Nigeria Political Parties.
That's interesting. James, you're welcome.
Two of them.
These are
They are conferencing.
all these gentlemen are, except three of us innocent people, all these other three men in white are all involved. So they will help us untie some of the knots. Now, James, in this second segment of this conversation, I read a piece that was distributed from your office yesterday, in which you were bemoaning a number of unfulfilled expectations, and you are requesting the government to redeem certain promises so that governance can become more meaningful. Now, before you came in, our colleagues here had said that the struggle for June 12 was not a struggle for structure. It was a struggle for governance. Even though they did not endorse Kaki, they did not endorse the process of coup by getting to power, but they said, in fact, what Nigerians struggled for in June 12 were mainly two. Allow us choose who leads us. It's not your business to impose anybody on us. And then let governance mean something in our lives. If there were the two contending issues in the June 12 struggle, as you sit here this morning, do you think that that struggle was worth it, and has June 12 redeemed itself?
Well, if you are talking about the struggle itself, the struggle itself was worth the trouble, because there was nowhere we will have where we are today if the military had continued to be in power. So the struggle was, first of all, to have opportunity for the citizens to decide who their leader will be at any point in time.
Are citizens today deciding who the leaders are?
That's the question mark. The question mark is, have we gotten to the point where the citizens can freely and truly decide who leads them? It is far from it. With the journey is still a far journey, and we hope that as we are celebrating Democracy Day today, we will now begin to reflect on the true ideals of the June 12 struggle, so that we can see if we can return to that path. Because if you watch since 2015, which we saw election that was said to be credible, that brought in the opposition and lost by the ruling party, it is something that you will say that the standard of election after that 2015 election has dropped. If they had stepped up that credibility of our elections, by today we would have been singing a new song. But as it is today, we seem to be going back to those days where our leaders were decided by some individuals who sit down in one room and say, we like your face, we don't like this one's face, let this one go. And then you will just be there seated in a way helplessly, as it were. And the other leg of it is that our democratic institutions, the institutions that are supposed to protect democracy, are being weakened by those who are in power. They keep influencing outcome of the elections by the electoral umpires. They keep influencing what the courts rule when it comes to when there's a dispute on electioneering process. And that has been one of the major challenges we are having, that even if the INEC as an umpire is not doing well and the court is doing well, there could have been a check and balance. But as it is today, the courts, when it comes to anything that has to do with elections, most times the judgment tilts towards who is favored and they tilted against who is not favored. And that's how it has become, and that is the dilemma we find ourselves, and that is the danger that we have as far as democracy is concerned in Nigeria today.
Senior Advocate, do you know that I would like to give you the final word on this his contribution, so that you also educate her, but please, a little patience with me. Paul, when I give an example, I showed you that the complaints we are raising this morning have tend to attend every other administration in this country. They have used them. We have done that. Here just said electoral umpire is not allowed. The courts are influenced. Go back, the same accusations. It means there's a constant, there's something if these accusations are true. Either it is a false narrative in order to win the sympathy of the electorate that those in power are all criminals, except you, the opposition, dissents. If this is the consistent conversation, Paul, as I sitting there, do you think we're celebrating Democracy Day?
Fela calls it a demonstration of
grace. In other words, we're all crazy.
Crazy demonstration. You know, in 2015, the APC came on the mantra of change. And, you know, that's a very heavy, to change from, bad ways to good ways, change from using your right hand to using your left hand and all of that. And listen, even if in 1999, in the advent of democratic rule, Obasanjo and others have done A, B, C, and D, which were not good enough. For a party and a people that prize themselves as progressives, you will expect that you will not be measuring what you do about how terrible, you want to be as terrible as what the other people. You are progressives, you need to transform, transformative this thing. Change the ways of doing things. Not to suggest that, Obasanjo did it. The question now is that, why did you take up the responsibility of governance to be worse than Obasanjo or Yar'Adua? So that is exactly, the situation that we find ourselves when a party comes to government, and their benchmark that they use is how terrible those people, were. Obasanjo then said, okay, fine. It was the chairman, the late PDP chairman that said they were going to rule for 60 years and all of that. Okay? And from there, we have now moved from just ruling from 60 years to ensuring that all of us are members of a political party. That's a new norm now in this particular administration, so that there will be no election if all of us are all members of the same party, and by hook or by crook, like I said, the EFCC, the ICPC, the military, the courts, the presidency are all used to ensure that everybody is railroaded into a party. So the question is, why do we need democratic rule? Because as it is, everything, the way and manner that it is being practiced is dictatorial. It's dictatorship. There is nothing democratic about it. Members of the INEC, who are supposed to be the umpires, are being drawn from members of a political party. So the question is, from the word go, already the election is skewed. The outcome is skewed, one way, or the other.
Paul, it's not a euphemism, but can I kindly summarize what you said? We should not be celebrating democracy because the process, the situation, the operatives are all blighted.
Well, we celebrate our birthdays because we are alive.
Okay. At least democracy is breathing, so you can as well celebrate it.
The D is still there.
The D is still there.
Maybe the C may have been substituted with a Z.
Eat the humble pie and say,
yes, please.
I think, whether we like it or not, democracy still remains the best form of government because it allows the people to decide who they want to lead them. But don't forget, the style of democracy we choose, the presidential system, is actually dictatorship endorsed by the constitution. That's the style of government we do. Then with the years of military experience that has now added impunity to dictatorship. So you don't expect so much to happen. But the sweet thing in it is that power still belongs to the people. The fact that we have opportunity every 4 years to redress our regrets still gives us opportunity not to keep complaining, because for me, like he said, if all of us, the last time I was here, I told you that the entire political class is less than 3% of our population. The entire, including their family and friends. Nigerians know that this is our issue. We need to collaborate and stop the blame game, but blame ourselves for whatever happens in our system. If our electoral system is not right, the people should insist to get the electoral system that is right. If a government is not doing well, the people should insist and change the government. If we continue in a democracy, if you don't change the existing government, you're empowering, you're forcing them to do what. But if you feel a government is not good for you, that's why we have multi-party democracy. Go to the other party, choose a new government, and try them. By the time you give them the impression that they can be hired and fired, they will give you good government.
But NRM, I will not give you a platform for party advertising.
Is it NRM?
Yes, National Rescue Movement. National Rescue Movement. I'm not going to give him a platform to advertise his party.
Who knows what?
Sir.
Okay.
Let me
Okay. No, I've just cautioned him because when he says go and choose another party, thank God you say go and choose NRM. Anyway, my producer says we just have about 7 minutes remaining. We've run almost 2 hours.
Okay.
Now, let's look at how well the outcome of the June 12 struggle, that is democracy, has treated certain segments of Nigerian population. The coup plotters were a collection of men, venturesome men. They didn't brook any woman in their conspiracy, and so the women were shut out. Now democracy has come, and I invited 2 women to this conversation, so I wanted them to make the point by themselves.
They're excluding themselves.
NRM, what has the June 12 struggle and the communal democracy availed the Nigerian woman?
Well, of course, you realize that recently there's a bill before the National Assembly that is even seeking to have a special seat for women. Over the years, we've had advanced cases of twinning system that allows women to take if the man is the chairman, he becomes the vice chairman. You have women leader positions. In some parties, like my party, the position of the national organizing secretary is handled by a woman. The women are gradually.
If you go along the line of your party, I'll give you a bail.
Okay, generally, some other parties, you will find them. Yes, agreed, we've not had what you may call fair share for the women, but it works in the works, and I believe that if this bill passes through, more women will be involved.
In other words, democracy has not been very wonderful. It needs to do more for Nigerian women.
That's correct.
James, Conference of Nigeria Political Parties. That's a big umbrella. How well have you advocated for a special place, or recognition, or more opportunities for Nigerian youth?
The challenge we have is that the Nigerian politics is highly monetized, and even if you say you are even advocating for the young people, do they even have the financial muscle to buy the form? Where are they going to get the money from? Let's assume that a young man who is talented, who has what it takes to, cause a revolution in government, so to say, and deliver a proper governance, as it were, can he buy the form from any political party in Nigeria? That is the problem. So we need to do more, when you talk of democracy, in terms of creating a level playing field. Because if a democracy is skewed, in favor of the rich, I don't know that kind of democracy what is going to become. Because if only the rich are the people that even can contest for a councillorship position, it becomes a big problem. And that's what we need to do more in terms of ensuring that we accommodate everybody, especially both the youths and the women, because they are the endangered species in Nigerian democracy. So they are the ones that are at the receiving end of the democratic stick in Nigeria, because what we do in Nigeria is there is no system that leads to a emergence of leaders in Nigeria. Once you have money, you can come from Jupiter, you can come from Mars, from anywhere, you just emerge because you have money. You buy your way to power. And that's what is happening in Nigeria. And that is what we need to begin to look at and address, so that we can have a level playing field for everybody. Money politics is a problem. But we have been looking at speaking to young people, get yourselves together, organize yourselves, and be able to crowdfund, so that you can raise money to sponsor one person, so that the person who you are sponsoring will be at least somebody that can represent that bloc in government or in any elective office. And that is one of the things that we want young people to explore. Let them to find a way how they can meet together, crowdfund, and be sponsoring themselves until they can be able to get into the system, so that they can change the system, because it's difficult to change the system from outside. And that is the
let us go to the two lawyers, senior advocate. He's raised a critical point. It appears that the Nigerian politics is being turned into an exclusive club. Will it be anything out of legal to suggest that a bill to force the Independent National Electoral Commission, for instance, to determine how much a candidate can pay? Because the political parties use every electoral cycle, election cycle, to raise funds for themselves. Now, an office comes up, 200 people are vying for that one office, and each of them, the way Tinubu pays 100 million, and only one person gets it, and the party's purse swell. Meanwhile, that 100 million has effectively shunned off my son, who has no money, and shunned off journalists like myself and Paul, whose rewards are in heaven.
What is it? The
Paul, have I mischaracterized us?
Unfortunately, the law, the principle is that it's not the business of the law to interfere into the internal affairs of political parties. Until that principle is changed, it remains like that. But let me also tell you that this is a global phenomenon. Politics at that level of recruitment of political leaders is oligarchic the world over. That is why his own principal has been able to represent all of the political parties that he have today as countries.
Because he had deep pockets.
Money. You understand? I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to another party tomorrow and
picks up the presidential ticket.
Because what? That's the way the system is.
I'm an anchor. I'm not supposed to expressing an opinion, but here I want to disagree with you.
No.
Please, NRM, bind with me. Let's disagree with San. What is equity?
Yeah.
I want the San to address what equity is.
Equity is fairness.
Thank you.
You see, fairness is contextual. It's within rules. I cannot come and tell you how you manage your home affairs. It is for you to manage your own affairs and produce somebody to come and compete out there, because it's a competitive world out there.
Even if I put up my wife for sale, it costs money because in my house.
No, that would not, because what? There is a law that protects your wife. You understand?
But let's
put it here. I do not want us to give the young men whose tomorrow we are talking about, we have spent our time, is that tomorrow. I do not want us to give them the impression that, oh, because forms are expensive, that is why they are not in politics. Because in any case, the list of all the expenditure in that process is buying of the forms. The money is there to be spent, and you need to have it. And the law has given you the latitude as to how, like it said, crowdfunding is a mental situation. There are some young men there who are buying Ferraris, who are buying Rolls Royce.
Lamborghini.
You understand?
To help you, sir, the high cost of form is only relative to APC and CDP. Come to some other parties
like yours,
like mine, that can give you forms free.
For free.
The last election, we were giving forms to women, and
it's not only just in politics. Let's be honest with ourselves. We run a patrilineal system. I mean, the men sit down. It's a men's club. And they determine
a men's club and men with money.
Yes, you know why that is dangerous. The women are about half of our population,
if not more.
No, and there is, it was the late MK Abiola. You can't wash. Can't use one.
You can't wash. You can't clap with one hand.
One hand. You need the two to clap. Any society that does not take advantage of the women population,
and potentially
development, they lose them.
Yeah.
Now there is something that Rwanda is doing, and not just in politics, in all aspects of their lives. Maybe, probably because of the genocide, and I'm not on TV suggesting that there should be a genocide so that our women, but even if there has to be, quote and unquote, that genocide, to
force the hand of the process to accommodate women.
Otherwise, take a look. I mean, do a research. Look at all the countries of the world that does not utilize their women food. No, they are always at the back.
Okay, thank you very much. My producer is a lawgiver. He says, round up, round up, round up. Clement,
So,
I'm going to give you powers because you once represented the Nigerian Bar Association. Please, in very short words, do you think Nigeria's democracy, from the outcome of June 12, is delivering on the expectations of the people?
Well, I will look at it from the angle of wherever I find myself. In Abuja, there is dividends of democracy. In my state, Imo State, in my village, as I rightly said in one of the programs, I experienced pipe-borne water primary 1, 2, 3, 4, TC, up to secondary school. Currently, people come to my house to fetch water from borehole.
Thank you very much. I caught you there. In other words, what Clement is saying is that our democratic experience has been a mixed bag. But Paul has also said we need to work harder. And the senior advocate says the expectations cannot all be realized in one day. Some have come to pass. There's still hope. And James, please, he raised moral issues. Democracy cannot be evaluated in the absence of checking what it has delivered all this while. And the NRM group are telling us that Nigerians should consider other alternatives if the one serving them is not paying. That is summary this morning. It's our town hall for this Democracy Day 2025, June 12. Don't forget that our programming will continue all along the line of Democracy Day. For this morning, it's almost midday. I want to thank you very much for investing your time with us. My name remains Webos Njoko. On your behalf, I thank everybody for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you.